Tell me your dreams over bacon and eggs. We'll share a laugh and a story and even a wish on the breakfast dish. Bop, 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 bop.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 20th episode of The Breakfast Dish. 20. For these last 3 episodes, I've been really pumped about the number, just because it sounds, I don't know, there's some podcasts that have like 400 to 500 episodes, but for some reason, 20, I'm pumped about. Hi, Karen.
Hi, son. How are you?
I'm well. It's winter now. Just now, it became winter at the start of this podcast. During this recording, it's winter now.
Just like instantly, nothing to do with December 21st or solstice or anything. Just the moment we hit record.
No. Okay. I thought you said solstice, as in winter solstice with some sodium infused, and I do love that.
Solstice.
We can't forget that.
That's what I'm going to say. Solstice. Solstice Spring Island.
Every winter I celebrate Saltstone. Karen, what do we do on The Breakfast Dish? What have we been doing for 20 episodes? Number 20 feels good. I don't know.
I don't know. After 20 episodes, you keep asking me. You'd think you'd know by now.
I know. I'm kind of goofy like that. Go ahead.
Listen, on The Breakfast Dish, we highlight, feature, amplify, talk about, celebrate any art that is happening.
Wait. Sorry, I need 3 more synonyms.
Oh, levitate.
Okay.
Punctuate.
All right.
And spill. No, that's a verb.
Well,
Spillifate. Okay.
You know what? We dish.
We dish. Oh my gosh, you're right.
That's the whole name.
Who thought of this name? That's great. I should have made that connection when we thought of this. Because
Wait. Who did think about it? Was that Russell Bowers?
I thought it was me.
Oh wait, but
I want it to be me. I just want it to be me. Let's leave it as me.
great.
Okay.
Sorry, Russell.
On The Breakfast Dish, we're going to do all those adjectives to any art that's happening online or in person distantly or virtually in Canada, Alberta, all the way down to Calgary, all the way down to the tiny, tiny neighborhood where I live in case there's anything going on. But this all stemmed from the Breakfast series, which is my Facebook series where I have breakfast with people that I don't really know and then find out more about them and introduce them to the world. And you know our guest, but I don't. And you have assured me that this is somebody we should introduce to the world.
You make it sound like I had to sit down with you in like a briefcase. Like, listen.
You did.
They're going to be great, okay?
There was a PowerPoint about this person.
There was $30,000 in unmarked bills. I will say there was a part of me that almost made you list those verbs again, but we can move on past it because I think you did a great job.
Thank you, son.
Today, our guest, and I'm very excited about this one. I will say that our guest was spouting some hot podcast fire and some excellent content before we started recording, and I told him to shut up because we needed to get it on recording. And he's which I don't think I've ever done before, but it's because no one was ever as funny right off the get-go. Today, we are joined by Howard J. Davis, a.k.a. Howie. Howie, how are you?
I'm doing so well. This is going to be really fun.
Oh no, the bar is set so high.
Yeah, no, it's true. There is a certain pressure that our kibitzing has to be good off the front to make the guest not regret that they came on within the first 2 minutes.
It has to prove that they realize they don't have to actually sound polished or make any sense whatsoever.
That is kind of the point, yeah. I think we said spill a while ago. Anyway.
Spill the dish. Hey, Howie, how do you and Griffin know each other? Because I think you already know each other.
Yeah, I met Griffin in 2018.
2019, I think it was just or the end of 2018.
2019,
whatever
my
it was.
Goodness. No, it was the beginning of 2019. My husband directed Griffin at the University of Alberta, and they did All for Love by, I'm forgetting the name right now.
That's okay, John Dryden.
John Dryden, and the play is also called A World Well Lost, which I really like. Right. And it was, it's the history of Cleopatra and Mark Antony, and it was I loved it because and I'm not just saying this because I'm on your show, I remember seeing Griffin and going, I see so much of myself in you because as, bigger men, we take up space on stage, and I apologized for that for years, and to see you just command that, and to see all of you as a class take on that material, it was just spellbinding. It was one of my favorite pieces I've seen because you guys were so committed to it.
You've never told me that. Thank you, Howie.
That's okay.
It's yeah. I mean, frankly, taking up space was something that I had to work on a lot in theater school. So it's nice that came across. That was kind of like my big number one goal, is to take in my height and not hunch my shoulders and make sure that I stand tall. And Peter helped quite a bit with that.
Oh, God, yeah.
I really liked it too, but I'm your mom, so you could probably take a poo on stage and I'd like it. But
You're biased.
I'm a little biased.
Sorry, did you say we could take a poo on it? Karen.
Once upon a time, I had a theater instructor that said that she went to see this amazing experimental theater piece, which was just this guy reading a book while he took a dump on stage. And I thought, I think I'm quitting theater school. But I didn't, thank goodness.
I think I've heard that story too. I've definitely heard, I don't know if it was in like a directing class or like a devising class or just like an eccentric piece. I've definitely heard a story about someone shitting on stage.
Yeah, you heard it from me because it's all I talk about, my experience from theater school. Anyway, back to our guest.
We talk about it. We talk about this every day, Howie. I wish you would stop bringing it up.
No, there's so many stories from people's theater school experiences, and I remember distinctly hearing a story at, I think it was Uta Hagen's school, where the final sort of work was that every actor had to go out on stage nude. And I remember going, oh my God, I don't want to do that at theater school. Thank God we didn't. But it was
oh my God,
a way of fully being present in your body and owning it. And I think there are other ways of doing that now.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree.
There's also the Uta Hagen story of they were speaking to a class and they went, if you ever want to look like you're thinking about something really serious on a film camera, just count down from 10 in your head, which I think that's so choice.
I think we had a similar one. Bernard Hopkins told our class, Bernard the late, I believe he played the same part that I did when I did Romeo and Juliet, and he said, if you want sort of an impulse to drop in you and you feel like you need to manifest that, tighten your sphincter.
That's my whole theater school.
What do you mean? Sorry, Karen. What do you mean?
I'm sorry. If you weren't finished, Howie, finish that story.
No, that was the end of the story.
My whole theater school was my instructor.
Wait, okay. I've never asked this on the show before, ever in my life. But Karen, do I want to hear this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Thanks for, yes, I'll warn you.
We've never had to clear this up, but this time I was actually scared.
I had the opposite experience where my instructor, Richard O'Brien, used to just tell us to stand up and relax and release your sphincters. Like, I didn't even know what that word was till I was in theater school.
It's a good word.
Anyway.
To go back on a previous topic, before we started talking about poo and sphincters, good God, thank you to our funders, all these government organizations. Anyway, it doesn't matter. You actually also kind of have a 6 degrees of separation from Howie, Karen, because, and Howie, tell me if I'm wrong about this, but you were in one of the iterations of Color Purple with Tara Jackson. Am I right about that?
I was, yeah. We were in the Halifax production.
And Tanaj Williams?
Yes, Tanaj.
And am I right, Janelle Cooper?
Yes.
That's there. I've named all the people I know in that play. That's all. I'm sure there were others.
Well, you technically half know Massini.
Oh, yes. Yeah, half know now. Yep.
That's right.
Has met through virtually Tara Jackson.
I didn't stay on the show because it was a lot of the cast went to Edmonton and Winnipeg, but I don't want to say I wasn't in the show because obviously I was, but I was the male swing in Halifax.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
So I swung into all of the men apart from Jeremiah Sparks.
Okay. I only briefly understand the whole concept of a swing because it was something that my high school drama teacher would talk about a lot. Like he was very pumped about being a swing in Broadway. But it sounds, frankly, hard. You're learning, whatever, 11 roles or something? How many roles did you learn to be the male swing in The Color Purple?
Roles or like tracks? Because that's
tracks.
Really where your mind goes. Yeah. So I did 5 tracks.
Oh my God.
Which the men in the ensemble play multiple roles. And that was such an interesting process. Being in Halifax, I feel like every person in Canada should go there. I say Black people because obviously that is where our history, a lot of the Black history in Canada started there. And so every Monday on the day off, I would go to a different community and went to Birchtown. I saw the Book of Negroes. I went to Lunenburg, and it was so amazing. And that show was very beautiful to do. But it's interesting being as when you don't really feel part of it. It's a totally different process. And I don't say that to pathologize myself in any way, to make myself sort of sound like, oh, poor me, I wasn't part of the cast. I was definitely part of the cast. But it's a different beast because you're not in it for many days, and then you're expected to jump in and be seamless and
no pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. The men in that show though are very it's not as demanding on the men as it is the women, because it is a queer women's story. Celie, it's her story. It's the story about a Black woman, and Tara was so beautiful. She was stunning in that show. Like, there are some parts built for people, and it was built for her.
Oh gosh, I wish I'd been able to see it. Just kills me.
It'll happen again.
There's one more that I have to say now. There's just one more. Is that Howie and I are also doing a workshop with the Shakespeare Company.
We are.
With the gentleman that directed us in All for Love, Peter Hinton. So we're very interconnected, Howie and I. We know people.
I gotta find my own 6 degrees of separation from Howie then.
Well, we have this now.
Well, I guess I have that. I want a connection that isn't through you, buddy. I want to be my own person. I don't want to just be Griffin Cork's mother.
Oh, preach, Karen Johnson Diamond. I love where you're going with this.
I will say the different last names. I love this. Karen Diamond is so beautiful, and
thank you.
Griffin Cork sounds like a character from Lord of the Rings or something.
Karen Johnson Diamond is so beautiful, and Griffin Cork, he's a fucking hobbit or something.
Can't swear on the breakfast dish. Can you swear on the breakfast dish? Have we sworn?
We've already said shit and poop and sphincter. I think if we're not allowed to be crass, we've crossed that line.
I don't think anyone said shit.
No, I did say shitting instead of pooping. Anyway, I'll be marking this one on Buzzsprout as containing explicit material.
Griffin's dad's last name is Cork. Griffin's dad used to be an actor, not anymore, but his last name is Cork. I was Johnson and had switched to Johnson Diamond before I ever got married, and I was just too damn lazy to change my name again.
My dad was in Superman 3. I always forget about that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Enough goofing around. Howie, we've brought you on the show to talk about your film, which I think I'm right that you are our first, purely filmic guest. Am I right about that, Karen?
Yeah. We've talked to people who've transferred their theater work to virtual, but I think this is our first filmmaker. Edit this part out if we're wrong, but I think you're right.
I'm almost certain that we're right, which is kind of crazy for me to think about, because film is such a large part of my life, and actually film kind of re-upped in COVID really quickly. Like stuff started shooting, at least here in Alberta, but I know sooner elsewhere. Stuff started shooting in August and July. So it's crazy to me that we haven't brought somebody on yet, but I think Howie is an excellent kickstart to it all.
You betcha.
Thanks.
Howie, you have the lovely poster for your film behind you, but why don't you tell us the title of it?
It's called Mixed Up.
I think the poster is so cool. That's you on the poster, right?
Yeah, it is. And it's part of a segment in the film where I metaphorically try to show both sides of my heritage. And I thought that would be the film. I filmed that first. And I remember, oh my goodness, I don't want to get emotional about this. I remember recording it, and one of the first things I said was, I'm not sure what I'm going to get out of doing this. And that paved the road for the film, being able to really go into the contradictions and the gray zone of what it means to be mixed, because we know this. Our culture, our world is defined in these binaries of straight and gay and white and black and you name it. There are so many binaries, and it's an interesting part of the film is when people go, oh, describe the film. I go, you want me to categorize this project that is, I made it to be undefinable. I don't want it to be easy to describe. I want people to live in the experience of it because it is about my finding inner cohesion in this world that's constructed around these binaries and labels of gender and you name it. We all feel those pressures every day. So it's a big undertaking.
I watched a little bit of the screening, and there was a point that you say I can only define myself as mixed because I want to get this right because your mother is British and your father is like from 4 different nationalities. I think I saw Swedish, Welsh, Cuban, and one more. Am I right about that?
Yeah, it's so funny. Nationality, race, like they're conflated, and by a lot of us. I found out in this process that a lot of my grandparents' birth certificates were forged.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah, it was. It happened a lot before World War II, where in order for people to leave, I can only assume it was because of the Cuban Revolution. Cuba's relationship with the United States was fraught. It still is to this day. My grandpa was born in Cuba, but his birth certificate was forged to say that he was born in Jamaica, and he joined the RAF. He flew for the Brits in the Second World War, and he joined the army very young. We don't know his age because, like I said, those birth certificates were not correct. So it's an interesting part of that history that I'm actually exploring now in a new piece about my great-grandmother Mary, who left Cuba with all 10 of her children, and she took them on the back of a donkey cart from Cuba to Barton, Jamaica. And I've likened her story to Mother Courage.
Oh.
This, woman set against a war that follows, Mother Courage. She follows the war in her travels. And so a lot of that history and mixed up is percolating into new works that I'm working on as well. And I just feel like the film has been a catalyst for a deepening of my understanding of myself and my parents, and this idea that for so long we've had to assimilate to survive. My dad, who is, I really believe this when I say it, like this film is a love letter to him. To really acknowledge that he felt like he needed to assimilate, and actually we don't have to do that anymore as Black people. We can find roots and be and feel grounded in us. We don't have to conform anymore.
Anytime, if at any point on the show where a guest brings up a love letter or I love my parents or anything like that, that's a surefire way into Karen's heart, let me tell you.
Oh, God, yeah. Is your father still with us?
Yes, he is, which is so rare. I recognize this, that I know many people have done pieces about their parents, but they've waited till they're no longer here. Like there was I'm forgetting the name right now, but my husband was telling me someone very famously wrote a piece about their parents and held on to it until his parents had passed, because you're immortalizing people. But what I love so much about documentary, because the film, I don't really want to say it's a doc because it breaks that sort of journalistic form.
It's undefinable.
Right? But there's this interesting theology around documentary, and it's something Kara Walker talks about, a very famous American painter, filmmaker, that in documentary, the narrator is unreliable. And I love that idea that the narrator is an unreliable historian. Like, it's their point of view.
Right.
So is it all fabricated or is it all truth? Like, who knows? In this case, it is really speaking to my truth, but it's an interesting form that you you don't quite know what is truth.
That's super interesting, because I've also heard the narrator of documentary is an unreliable narrator, and it's, oh man, that's funny, because there's a few. I mean, there's a few films popping up nowadays about how COVID-19 is a hoax, and so there's a couple of them where there's like they bring in like a fake doctor, or maybe it's a real doctor, and they go, yeah, I know all these secrets. They sent the cops to my house, and then they cut to a shot of like a SWAT team bursting into a house. So, but then there's an investigative journalist who just looked up a SWAT team on a stock footage site, and it was like the first clip that popped up, like stuff like that, where you go, oh man. But you're right that it's. I love that you're trying to keep it undefined, because you're right that there certainly are documentary elements. Like there are definitely a few interviews in there, but you also have this like really interesting, almost found footage aspect. Like it was the point where you and Peter try and get into your childhood home. So then it's just you guys like walking along that path. And you're talking about like, oh, I can't believe I'm glad my parents got me out of here. Like it's you know, it's kind of mentioned in the blur, but you see images of painting and dance and some of your own performance art. Like it is. It's the first kind of example that I've seen of like a cross medium film without ever leaving the film. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, thanks for saying that, because it's, you know, as we've said before, I came from theater, and so much of that aesthetic really drives a lot of the work that I do. And since moving into projection design and filmmaking, I can't not have that be part of my theology and practice. So it's been really informative, and interestingly, I would love to move into long form narrative film and television directing, but I don't want to lose that essence of theater, because I feel like so much of theatricality has left the television form. And there is a piece that I'm working on, very early development, that's used as a confessional style, and I love that. Like it's like Shakespeare, you know, these monologues to the camera.
Yeah.
And but what's interesting with monologues is Griffin and I are sort of working through in this Shakespeare workshop that we're doing. My husband speaks about the soliloquy being something that stops time, and I realized that's why filming Shakespeare has been so unsuccessful. I'm generalizing a little bit, but it's been unsuccessful in film because the character doesn't stop time. They're always just adjusting their point of view.
Right.
And I've never seen, you know, time stand still for that character to then address the audience, because it's so rare that we talk to ourselves. Like we're always talking to someone.
I do wonder if that would make a Shakespeare film more interesting if they did kind of like a Robin Wright House of Cards thing, where they like everything stops and they turn to the camera,
right?
And then they do they deliver their monologue down the barrel. Like that might be super cool.
That happens, I think, if I remember correctly, Ian McClellan's Richard III.
Oh, I'd buy that.
If you ever watch that one, it takes place in World War II, and his monologues are straight down the barrel. Listen to me, I'm talking like I know film talk. Down the barrel.
Why is it called a barrel?
That's right. I don't know.
Another thought that I had, though, is just going back to what you said, too, just about we live in so many binaries. Theater and film live in that. And I know it's not a comparison to what your film's about, but it's just that idea of how many people have said to Griffin, are you going to be a theater actor or are you going to be a film actor? And are you a dancer or are you an actor? Right? So it's...
Just to clarify, no one said that about me. No one's been confused if I'm a dancer.
But I feel you on that, Karen. Definitely. It's
yeah.
Like you, even my own sister and I, we were at theater school together, and people sort of go, oh, you can't stay together forever. And in a way, it's kind of sad because she was pulled to film and sits so wonderfully and beautifully in that medium. But she, you know, I'm sure she'd love to do theater. And I literally went right to the Shaw Festival.
Right.
But it's something that I respectfully challenge, is that idea that I have to choose. Like even in my training, yes, I trained as an actor. Then I was invited back to do the dance program.
I think Griffin runs, like I think you ride both waves, both like really good. But I remember people...
Thanks, Mom.
You're welcome, son. But I remember people saying, you know, what's he going to do? Is he going to do film or theater? And I took a lesson from my husband and I answered, yes. Yes, he is. He's going to do film or theater. Because I remember when I was pregnant with you, people would come up to Dad and say, are you hoping for a boy or a girl? And he'd go, yes, which I just thought was the best answer in the world.
Have we talked about the names that you picked for me if I was a girl? Have we already talked about that on this podcast? I can't remember.
That lives in a binary world. I could have given you Veronica or Kestrel as a male identifying kid too, but I chose Griffin because you were tiny and I wanted you to sound tough.
Yo, what's up? My name's Veronica. Who wants to bench press?
I love the baby name choices.
I know.
It's so I don't know if I would have liked the name that I think my mom always wanted Howard.
Yeah.
But there was talk of me being Gabriel, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Oh, I love that. I love knowing what you would have been.
I would have had endless people picking on me. Gabriel, oh my God.
Oh.
How would you have preferred Gabe?
I would have hated Gabriel entirely.
I would have hated all of it.
Children are horrible.
Yeah.
I remember stupidly, you were speaking earlier about that old footage. I remember when we moved back to England. I don't know why I did this, but I remember being at primary school in Bath, and one of the first days, I remember saying to this kid, "Please don't call me Howard the Coward."
Oh.
And from that day on,
Yeah.
it was relentless. And I was bullied no end. And it's interesting, what got me out of being a target for endless bullying actually was when people saw me perform. They actually it pivoted people's opinions of me in a really interesting way. I remember sort of going, oh, this is the transformation of what we do. It changes you internally and people's opinions of you. And I love that part of it. But I also like being a filmmaker and a creator because you aren't the art. It's outside of yourself in many ways. And so there's benefits to both, I find. So
yes, Karen, little sidebar here. Howie did send us a screener link, a very private screener link just for you and me on the breakfast dish, and you should watch some of it because there's a lot of home footage of tiny Howie running around.
Which I haven't changed.
No, it's true.
I read a bunch of the articles. I read one of the articles just about how the play begins with the clay covering of your body and ends with the clay removal of your body, which sounds striking
that was
and beautiful.
So hard to film.
I was going to say, what happened?
I bet, just looking at the photos.
It was so worth it, but scary as well, because my eyesight's very bad without glasses and contact lenses, and when it gets in your eyes and you can't really breathe, and the clay was actually blue, but I did a lot in post to make it very stark and chromatic to sort of highlight that experience of being sort of, I start black and I crystallize to cold. And even the song itself is from an opera about King Arthur where he freezes to death. And it was a really beautiful discovery to have that song complement that piece. And I was very fortunate to work with Isaiah Bell, who's an opera singer that actually worked with my husband in Hadrian when my husband directed the Canadian Opera Company. It was Danny McIver and Rufus Wainwright's opera about Hadrian the Emperor. And Isaiah was in that. And I remember at the time going, I have to use him for something. Yeah. Oh my God. And then we decided to have Isaiah sing, which I think was fun for him too, because he is a tenor, and that song is usually a bass. So we got to really play around with the arrangement, and it was really all the music side. Like, music is such an integral part of film.
You have a performer involved in the film that is a double bassist.
Yes, Geneva.
But I don't know what that means. Like, in the sense, not a musician. But I go, oh, okay, is she playing the double bass violin, or is she singing?
No, it's the double bass. I'm not as informed about music either, but it's It looks like a large violin.
Like an upright bass.
Okay, yeah.
Like an upright bass.
Upright bass. I didn't know there was single versus double. How's that? I'm learning something new every day.
Yeah, we recently went back to England, and I met a lot of family right before the pandemic, and I met Geneba, and she's, I think, on paper, like a second cousin twice removed. I just call her cousin.
Yeah.
Because we do that. And Geneba is such a beautiful, beautiful soul, a model, a filmmaker, a musician, and I wanted her to be part of it in some way. And when I started hearing her music, I was like, oh my God, like I need her here. And she's at the end of the film, this transformation I have where sort of I'm washed and I'm cleansed through the water. Her music is in that scene. And yeah, I was so grateful to have her be part of this.
What would you say your favorite part of Mixed Up is? Either to actually shoot or to view afterwards. Like what, or maybe another way to ask it is what do you think? What moment of the film do you think will stick with people the most?
Oh, that's a good question. I think my favorite part is where I take. I know it's a bit of there's a lot of irony in this film, and a lot of people, if you watch it literally, you have to constantly see the doubles that are present.
Right.
But right at the end, I do a manifesto, and I call it a mixed up manifesto, which, as we know, a manifesto is not mixed up. And I just love that play, and constantly in the film, it has that double.
Right.
And it's a rap that I do at the end of the film. And I put so much of my heart into that. And like I say, being mixed is complex, but can also be free because I'm the quintessential influential version of me. And the search is ongoing, but today, like, I feel good about it. And sometimes it's a struggle, and sometimes I don't want to say the F word, but we've probably already said it.
I'm sure we said it.
It's amazing. Like, to be mixed is one of the most amazing things. And it's not to say it's better than being a homogenous society, but we're not homogenous anymore.
No.
And these antiquated ideas that to be mixed meant that you were effed up, and it's so old. But I realized in doing this that the depiction of mixed people on film has perpetuated this idea that we were confused. And, all these old films like Lost Boundaries, which was one that I found, and I couldn't not put it in the film because the lead character his name is Howard. And I was like, hello, like this is so interesting to see again, this double parallel of a young man who doesn't know that he's black, and he finds out that his family have passed for years and years, and they come out, they were outed, actually, this family in Chicago in the early 20th century. And but it's interesting, all those depictions. I'd love to remake Pinky, but have a woman of color play the lead, because all of those actors in Hollywood the mixed person was played by a white actor, and you never saw the parents, you saw the grandparents. Because all of these rules that Hollywood had, you couldn't even say black on camera. It was all coded.
Well, I very much appreciate that you've been talking so much about the film, even though we've been we cannot ask you to define it. So you're doing a very good job. But I mean this seriously. I think you're doing a very good job at keeping it, not giving too much of the film away for those who want to see it, but also keeping it boundary breaking.
Thanks.
Boundary breaking's good. I'll define it's now forever going to be defined in my head as a love letter to your father. So that doesn't envelope it into a particular box, but it has a feeling to it. So That's what I like better.
Well, let's talk about the business side a little bit, because it's premiering, or has premiered, I think, on Out TV, and it's playing soon at the Imagination Film Festival. Am I right about those two things?
Yeah. So we premiered November 11th, Remembrance Day. How aptly poetic. And it premiered on Out TV, and it is also available on Amazon Prime, Apple TV, and I believe is licensed in the UK, Canada, India, New Zealand, Australia. So it's available, in many countries.
Nice.
And then we go to Image in Nation in Montreal, November the 19th.
Image in Nation? Is that the film festival? Image in Nation?
Image and Nation. I love that.
Oh, I said imagination. Oh man, what a white thing for me to say. Sorry, everybody.
Well, it's interesting because I've had a film that's played at Imaginative, and one of Canada's biggest Indigenous film festivals, and Image in Nation, where Mixed Up is playing, is Canada's oldest queer film festival. They've been, I think, it's their 33rd year.
So if our listeners wanted to watch your film right now, they could go to Out TV or Amazon Prime. Oh no, what was the third one you said?
Apple TV.
Apple TV, and look up for Mixed Up Film. Mm-hmm. Perfect, there you go.
And you can go to the website too, mixedup.ca.
Oh, it's a beautiful website too.
That's the easiest go see instructions I think we've ever had, possibly. Film rocks!
I have one last question. Is this, well, it's not a last question. I just have another question. Is the image a still shot from the film, or did you have a particular photographer? And I'm speaking specifically about the image over your left shoulder there.
Yeah, so one thing I don't really like to do in my films, because I've solo produced for quite some time now, is I don't want the endless credits of saying, yada, 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 HAUI, yada, 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 HAUI. I edited, shot, directed, and wrote this, but I just say, created by HAUI. Right, because,
okay.
You don't want to see my name over and over and over again in the credits. I just feel like people will get it. But that is, it's a still that I took from the film.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. Oh, here, backing up though, I've been rewatching the hilarious House of Frightenstein. Do you know what I'm talking about? Canadian kids show, Vincent Price and Billy Van. Anyway, I grew up on this show.
Yeah, bring it home, Karen. I can't wait to see where
I'm
this
just
goes.
saying, Billy Van played almost every single character in that show.
Oh,
and the
see.
credits roll. Billy Van, Billy Van, Billy Van, Billy Van. And I go, I'm amazed at his talent and his ability and his wonder. So when I'm watching your film, I'm just going to imagine your name going by 10 times at the end credits.
Yeah, Howie. So what we're saying is we know, and we're impressed. Howie, thank you very much for joining us on The Breakfast Dish.
Thank you, guys. This has been really fun.
Oh, yay.
We have one last question to ask you, but before we do, I have to take a second to actually thank our sponsors without mentioning any poop or sphincters: the Calgary Arts Development Authority, the Rosé Foundation, and the Calgary Foundation. The intro music you just heard and the outro music you're about to hear is by Alexandra Cowman, and all graphic design has been done by Morgan Erbter. Now, Howie, how we like to end things, usually, is that Karen will make up a breakfast-themed question semi-relating to your project, and she'll make it up right here on the spot. She hasn't prepped it. She's a professional improviser. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
If you took two breakfasts that were completely different from each other and mixed them together and ate them at the same time, what would those two things be?
Ooh, that's a difficult question.
That is hard.
I never got to have Cocoa Puffs when I was young, so definitely Cocoa Puffs, because my mom made me eat healthy food.
Perfect.
Oh my goodness, Cocoa Puffs and Marmite.
Oh wait, what's Marmite again? What is that? It's like the spread. Is it a spread?
Australian
Yes,
spread.
I love it. I'm sorry, that is the grossest mix.
That is the best breakfast answer ever. Like, because that when I say if you were going to take two different things and put them together, I'm hoping for a really great answer. That was an awesome answer.
But I was going to say, in theme of mixed up, I would have scrambled eggs.
Right.
Because
also
yes.
good. Do you wait a second, Howard? Do you actually love Marmite?
Oh, I love it. Like, one of the first things I ate was my mom and dad would have boiled eggs, and they'd make soldiers with bread. Like,
Yeah.
cut up a piece of bread and have butter and Marmite, and you eat it up, and it's delicious.
Then, okay, because this is actually a cilantro thing, is that there's people who hate and love Marmite who have tried Marmite.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've tried it. I've lived a sheltered life, 54 years, and I don't think I've ever tried it.
Well, it's funny, totally random. Because Marmite is very high in vitamin B12, vitamin. See, it comes out. My accent comes out every so often. It cannot be cultivated without yeast from beer. And because of lockdown, Marmite actually couldn't be manufactured. So I've been without it this entire quarantine. And finally, my auntie sent me some. Don't tell customs.
I would never.
It's lockdown.
Karen, what else is going on this week?
Oh, let me tell you. Hold on. I was just thinking, it's lockdown. What does my nephew need? He needs some Marmite. Coming up this next week with virtual and wonderful online art is the Gimme 10 Minutes production, which is 5 10-minute plays directed by Sarah Wheeldon, November 21st and 22nd. $10 tickets, and you can find those at Gimme 10 November 21 at bpt.me, brownpapertickets.me, or if you want to see it on the 22nd, it's Gimme 10 November 22, and that's spelled GIMME, number 10, November. Next up, Wednesday, November 18th from 6 to 8 p.m., Marty Chan is offering a webinar through Theatre Alberta's Webinar by Request, an introduction to writing plays, and it's called Playing Around. I love it. It's pay what you can.
That's why he's the playwright.
Exactly. And also on Thursday, November 26th, they're going to award the Siminovich Prize for playwriting. It's an online event. One of 5 finalists will receive the $100,000 prize, and that is the SiminovichPrize.com. SIMINOVITCH prize.com. And the other thing I would suggest is that if you're in Alberta, if you check theatrealberta.com, they're going to keep us updated on anything that might be changing because of the new restrictions in Alberta. So any things that might be happening in live that are now moved online, you can read about those at theatrealberta.com. They're going to keep a track of that.
Happening in live.
Howie,
do you have any social medias to plug before we go?
Sure, yeah. So my social media is at Howie Davis, HAUIDAVIS. And the film on Instagram is mixed_up_film, and then at mixedupfilm everywhere else.
Boom. And obviously we'll be posting it on all the descriptions and everything. You can follow me everywhere at Griffin Cork. She never remembers, so I'll just say it for her. You can follow Karen at Mrs. N Diamond, and I think her Instagram is Karen Johnson Diamond.
Who knows?
Please, I never say this part. I really have to start saying it, but subscribe on the platforms, review the podcast, like the thing, do the
stuff.
Make sure it's there, and yeah, double check on them. I don't know. Is that it? Hell.
Yeah, I don't want to say goodbye. I want to live watch the film now. Can we just do that? Can the rest of the podcast just be like I share screen and we watch the special screener and we just watch it together?
Thank you very much, audience. We'll be doing 55 minutes or however long the film is of dead silence while we watch. You might hear the outro music, but yeah, don't worry, we'll be here still. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Howie.
Thank you.
Bop, 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 bop.
This has been The Breakfast Dish.